Have you ever felt invisible, like no one noticed you slipping away? Have you ever wondered why Jesus said a shepherd would leave 99 sheep just to chase after one lost? The parable of the lost sheep isn't just a story, it's a mirror of God's love for you. A love that runs after the one who feels forgotten, the one who feels broken, the one who feels too far gone. Maybe you've been carrying guilt that no one else knows about, or pain so heavy you've started to believe you don't matter. But this story says otherwise. It tells you there is a shepherd who sees you, who knows your absence, and who will stop at nothing until you are brought back home. In this video, we're going to uncover the hidden meaning behind the 99, the one, and the relentless heart of the shepherd that refuses to give up on you. The sun would rise slowly over the rolling hills, and the shepherd was always awake before the light touched the grass. He was not just a keeper of animals, he was their guardian, their provider, their constant companion. Every day began with the same rhythm, yet never with boredom. He would stand at the edge of the pasture, his staff in hand, his eyes scanning the horizon with a patience that only love can teach. The first act of his morning was always to count the sheep, not as a business owner would count coins, but as a father counts the children in his household. Each sheep was known to him, not merely as part of a flock, but as an individual with quirks, habits, and a certain look in its eyes. He had names for them, though no one else cared to know. One had a black patch over its left ear. Another limped slightly from a healed wound. One was always quick to race ahead while another lingered behind, timid and slow. To an outsider, they were indistinguishable, but to the shepherd, they were stories written in wool and flesh. Each bleat carried a distinct sound, and each movement betrayed a familiar personality. This is why he counted them, not out of fear of losing profit, but out of a devotion that whispered, "You matter." His day unfolded with small rituals of care. He would lead them to streams he had scouted in seasons past, making sure the water was clean and gentle enough for the smallest lambs to drink. He would guide them to pastures where the grass grew tender, not too high, so even the weaker ones could graze without effort. Sometimes he would sing, his voice steady and low, a melody without words that calmed the restless and drew the scattered closer. In the heat of the day, when the sun burned, he would lead them to shade, standing himself in the open, enduring the glare so that they could rest undisturbed. And then came the evening, when shadows grew long and danger crept closer. Wolves roamed in the valleys. Thieves lurked near the trade routes. The shepherd was no stranger to these threats, yet he did not live in fear. His eyes were sharp, his staff firm, and his courage unwavering. As dusk approached, he would gather the sheep together, guiding them back to the fold. It was in these moments, as he counted one by one, that his devotion became most visible. Each number was not a tally, but a heartbeat. 94, 95, 96. His lips moved with care, his eyes touching each sheep as though he were blessing them in silence. But then came that night, the night everything shifted. 97, 98, 99. He stopped. His voice fell quiet. The rhythm broke. His eyes darted across the flock, searching, scanning, counting again. Once more, he went through them carefully. He knew their faces, their steps, their presence. And it was undeniable. One was missing. The one he had named because of the way it wandered in circles before settling to rest. The one with the faint scar on its side. A scar he remembered tending to when it had been caught in thorns. It was not there. The flock stirred, uneasy as they sensed his change in posture. He stood still, silent, his mind racing. Where had it strayed? When had it slipped away? The thought pierced his heart, not with anger, but with urgency. He replayed the day in his mind. That sheep had lingered on the edges, restless, gazing toward the distant hills as if something beyond the pasture was calling. He had noticed it, made a note in his heart, but in the crowd it had seemed safe enough. Now, under the descending dark, the truth revealed itself. It had gone. The safe choice would have been to stay with the 99. Logic would say, you have preserved the majority, Do not risk them for one. But love does not operate by the arithmetic of safety. The shepherd's heart burned with a singular mission: find the lost. He did not see one sheep as expendable, nor its absence as acceptable. For him, absence was pain. The flock was not whole while even one was gone. So he left. He left the 99 gathered in the fold, secure within their enclosure, and set out alone into the night. He carried only his staff, a small lamp, and a determination that made fear irrelevant. The air grew colder as he climbed the ridges. The stones bit at his feet. Owls screeched, wolves howled in the distance, and the darkness stretched before him like an endless sea. Still, he pressed on, calling out with a voice steady and clear, "Where are you?" His call was not desperate but filled with conviction, as if the sheep could feel the assurance of its shepherd's love even through the night air. He searched crevices where shadows pooled. He walked along steep cliffs where one misstep meant disaster. He moved through thickets where branches tore at his clothes and skin. At every turn, he imagined the lost sheep, terrified, entangled, exhausted, and his pace quickened. He did not think of the 99 waiting behind. He did not calculate the risk of leaving them unattended. He did not measure the cost of time or danger. Love had narrowed his vision to one singular task: bring the lost one home. Hours may have passed, though time seemed to vanish into the rhythm of his search. The lamp flickered as the wind pressed against it. His voice grew hoarse, yet he called again and again. And then, faintly at first, he heard it. A bleat, weak and trembling, carried on the wind. His heart surged. He turned toward the sound, pushing through the brush, climbing higher, moving faster. The cry came again, closer this time, fragile but alive. Finally, he found it. The sheep was tangled among brambles, its wool matted with dirt and thorns. Its legs shook, its eyes wide with fear. Yet the moment it saw him, recognition flickered. The trembling slowed, the fear softened. The shepherd knelt, his hands gentle as he freed it from the snare. He did not scold, he did not punish. He lifted it onto his shoulders, the weight pressing into him but carried with joy. The lost was found. As he descended back toward the valley, his steps were steady, his heart unburdened. He did not dwell on the danger he had faced or the effort it had cost. His only thought was reunion. The sheep on his shoulders was not a burden, it was a triumph. Every step back was a testimony to love's persistence, to the truth that no one is too far, too broken, or too lost to be carried home again. When he returned to the fold, the 99 stirred, sensing the joy in his presence. He placed the lost one gently among them, and for the first time that night, he exhaled fully. The flock was whole again. The valley was silent, but within the shepherd's heart, there was a song, a melody of relief, of joy, of love fulfilled. He had left 99 to find one, and in doing so, he had revealed the value of the one, the unmeasurable worth of every life. The parable of the shepherd who leaves 99 sheep to seek one missing seems simple, but when told, in full detail, it unfolds as a mirror of the human soul. To understand its weight, we must first step inside the shepherd's world. His life was not glamorous. He was not admired in the public square. Shepherds often lived on the edge of society, unseen by the crowds, yet their labor demanded everything. His routine was born of devotion, not convenience, and in his devotion lies the hidden meaning of this parable. Every morning began with intention. Before the flock stirred, before the grass bent under the rising sun, the shepherd woke. His body was accustomed to long days and restless nights, but his spirit carried a deeper rhythm, one of vigilance. He would stand at the gate and call each sheep by name, for though outsiders saw numbers, he saw identities. Counting was never a matter of statistics, it was an act of love. He counted because to know is to care, and to care is to take responsibility. Every count reaffirmed, I see you, I know you, you belong. This is why the loss of one shattered him. From a distance, 99 may look like a complete flock, But to the shepherd, absence had a sound, a weight, a wound. Imagine a mother who gathers her children for supper and finds one missing from the table. The meal may still be served, but joy is fractured. Presence cannot be replaced by numbers. Love does not accept averages, it seeks wholeness. The shepherd's day was filled with countless small acts of sacrifice that reveal the heart of God. He did not simply feed them, he studied their needs. One might grow restless without enough space to wander, while another needed gentle prodding to keep pace. He remembered which ones preferred the cool shade, and which ones craved the warmth of open fields. He adjusted paths to ensure even the weakest could walk without stumbling too often. Every decision was filtered through the question, will this keep them safe? Will this help them grow? And yet, in spite of his vigilance, one sheep drifted. Why? This question invites us to reflect on the nature of freedom. Sheep are not chained, they are led. They are given room to graze, space to explore. This freedom carries risk, for in the openness of the pasture lies the temptation of distant hills. That one sheep, restless and curious, gazed at horizons beyond the flock. Perhaps the grass there seemed greener. Perhaps it was simply drawn by instinct to explore. Whatever the reason, it drifted. And in drifting, it stepped outside the safety of presence. Here lies the psychology of wandering. People do not always leave out of rebellion. Sometimes they leave out of hunger for more. Sometimes out of hurt that went unnoticed. Sometimes out of distraction, forgetting where home lies. The sheep did not intend to vanish forever. Yet small steps away eventually became separation. This reflects the way human beings lose themselves, not through a single catastrophic choice, but through small neglects, small compromises, small distractions that over time create distance. The shepherd noticed, not because he was counting possessions, but because absence pierced his spirit. Love is attuned to absence. It feels the missing beat in the song, the missing word in a conversation, the missing presence in a gathering. His pause at 99 was not hesitation. It was heartbreak. And in that moment, the parable reveals the radical truth. God is not content with almost. He does not say, "At least I have 99. He says, "I must go, for the one is worth everything." What follows is the most overlooked aspect, the risk. Leaving 99 was not a safe decision. Wolves could attack, thieves could strike, the flock might scatter. In human logic, the risk outweighs the reward, but divine logic reverses the equation. In God's economy, the one is not less than the 99. The one is equal in value. The willingness to risk the 99 is not recklessness, it is revelation. It shows us that love cannot be calculated by probability. Love is measured only by sacrifice. Consider the journey he took, into valleys where shadows twisted, over cliffs where danger hid, through thorn bushes that cut his skin. He went not knowing if he would succeed, but knowing he could not rest until he tried. This pursuit is the essence of grace. Grace is not passive acceptance, it is active search. It does not wait for the lost to return on their own. It goes out, it seeks, it carries. And when he found the sheep, his response tells us more than the search. He did not strike it, he did not curse it, he did not bind it to prevent it from wandering again. He lifted it onto his shoulders. He bore its weight. He made its weakness his burden. He turned its trembling into rest. Here is the heart of the parable. Restoration is not punishment, it is embrace. The sheep's return was not marked by shame, but by celebration. The shepherd's joy over the one surpassed even the security of the 99. This is the scandal of grace, that heaven rejoices not when the righteous remain righteous, but when the lost are found. It is not that the 99 are unimportant. It is that the return of the one reveals the depths of love in a way safety never could. Safety speaks of maintenance. Rescue speaks of redemption. Philosophically, this story challenges utilitarianism, the idea that the greater good always outweighs the individual. In the world's logic, 99 outweigh 1, but in the kingdom's logic, the one holds infinite worth, because worth is not determined by quantity, but by essence. Each life carries an immeasurable value, not because of what it produces, but because of what it is, a soul created in the image of God. Psychologically, this parable heals the human wound of invisibility. Many live with the fear of being overlooked, of being just another face in the crowd. But this story whispers to the heart, you are noticed, even in your wandering. You are pursued, even in your hiding. You are valued, even in your weakness. The shepherd does not calculate effort versus reward. He simply goes because love cannot abandon. Other voices in history echo this truth. Augustine, restless in his pursuit of meaning, confessed, "Our hearts are restless until they rest in you." His wandering was intellectual and moral, yet he too was found. Mother Teresa, who bent low to care for those society abandoned, believed that each one is Jesus in disguise. She understood the worth of the one. Martin Luther King Jr. preached that justice cannot ignore the least among us. For to lose, one is to fracture the whole. Each of these lives testifies, the pursuit of the one is the heartbeat of true love. The parable also teaches us about leadership. True leadership is not shown in protecting the majority alone, but in noticing the missing. In families, workplaces, communities, it is easy to celebrate the 99 who stay, succeed, conform. It takes courage to seek the one who strays, who struggles, who resists. But the measure of love, the measure of leadership, is found in the lengths we are willing to go for the one who feels unseen. When the shepherd returned, his flock was whole again. The lost sheep carried back became a testimony to all. The 99 may not have understood why he risked them. But as they watched the joy on his face, they saw a truth greater than safety, that wholeness is only wholeness when every member matters. And perhaps in that moment, each sheep realized that if it were the one to wander, the shepherd would have done the same. This is not only the shepherd's story, it is humanity's. Each of us is the one at some point. Each of us strays, whether through curiosity, pain, or neglect. And each of us is pursued by a love that refuses to quit. The parable invites us not only to see ourselves as sheep, but to embody the shepherd's heart, to notice, to pursue, to carry, to restore. The shepherd's decision to leave the 99 for the one marked the beginning of a journey that reveals more about love than any words alone could tell. It was not a calculated step taken in daylight with certainty and safety. It was a march into darkness, into wilderness, into risk. To grasp the weight of the parable, we must walk with him into that night and imagine the details his silence leaves unsaid. Once he realized the sheep was missing, there was no hesitation. His staff struck the ground with purpose as he left the fold behind. Yet imagine the voices that could have risen against him if there had been other witnesses. Stay with the 99, you fool. Don't risk everything for one that chose to wander. Cut your losses. Protect the many. Such is the voice of reason, the voice of calculation, the voice of fear. But love is not guided by fear. Love is guided by the certainty that no one is disposable. So he went, and with every step into the shadows, he bore the questions that haunt anyone who dares to love deeply. The wilderness was not an empty field waiting to be crossed. It was jagged terrain where cliffs hid beneath loose soil. The air carried the smell of predators. The night was thick with sounds that pricked the ears and tested the courage. Each rustle of leaves could have been a wolf. Each distant cry could have been a thief prowling the trade routes. The shepherd walked not in ignorance, but in defiance of fear. He knew the dangers, yet pressed forward, because the cost of staying was heavier than the cost of going. To remain with the 99 would have meant safety, but also surrender, to say that one life was expendable. That was a surrender he could not accept. He moved through valleys where shadows stretched long across the ground. The moon rose above the hills, silvering the rocks and brush, casting eerie shapes that seemed alive in the corner of his eyes. His staff became more than a tool. It was his anchor, something solid to hold in a world where every step could mean disaster. He carried with him a small lamp, its flame flickering against the wind, fragile but persistent. That lamp was enough to light only the next step, Never the whole path, yet he trusted it. Faith often works this way, not giving the full map, only the next step, but demanding trust with each stride. The search was not quick. Hours passed, though in the solitude of the night, time lost its meaning. His feet grew sore, the leather of his sandals scraping against stone. His hands bled where thorns reached for him, pulling at his cloak, yet his voice did not fail. Again and again he called out, steady and clear, not desperate, but resolute. His call was not only to guide the sheep, but to reassure it, I am coming for you. Do not give up. In the silence of the wilderness, that call was a promise. Think of this moment. The shepherd's endurance was not fueled by certainty of success, but by certainty of worth. He did not know if he would find the sheep alive, but he knew he had to try. This is the courage of love, to risk with no guarantee, to give without assurance of return. In our world, we often invest only where we see profit, love only where we see promise. But the shepherd shows a higher path, to search because the one matters, regardless of outcome. Eventually, faintly, a sound broke the silence. A bleat, weak, trembling, carried by the wind. The shepherd froze, his ears straining. He called again, his voice lifting over the night, and the cry returned, fragile but real. His heart surged, his pace quickened. He climbed ridges, stumbled over rocks, forced his way through brambles. Each cry grew clearer, guiding him like a beacon in the dark. At last, he saw it. A small form tangled in thorns, wool, matted with dirt, eyes wide with fear. The sheep was alive, but exhausted. Its legs trembled as it struggled against the snare. Its cries were not loud now, but desperate, the voice of one who had almost given up. The shepherd knelt beside it, his hands moving carefully, pulling back the thorns, loosening the branches. He winced as they cut into his skin, but he did not stop. The sheep resisted at first, too frightened to recognize safety. But as his hands worked steadily, as his voice murmured softly, calm returned. Recognition dawned in its eyes. The trembling slowed. Fear began to fade. And then the shepherd lifted it. He did not scold it. He did not bind it in punishment. He placed it across his shoulders, bearing its weight as though it were a crown rather than a burden. The wool pressed into his neck, the hooves dug into his sides, but his face carried peace. This was not the weariness of labor, but the satisfaction of fulfillment. He had found what was lost. He had restored what was broken. The journey back was no easier than the journey out. The cliffs remained treacherous. The night remained thick. The dangers remained real. But his steps were lighter now because love carried victory on his shoulders. Every step was filled with joy, not because the struggle had vanished, but because the struggle had borne fruit. The sheep that had once trembled in fear now rested in safety. Its cries had turned to silence, its panic to peace. When he returned to the fold, the 99 stirred. They could not comprehend the depth of his joy, yet they felt it. The flock was whole again. What had been fractured was restored. And though the 99 had never left, it was the one's return that turned the night into a celebration. Here is the core insight. The journey of the shepherd into the wilderness is the journey of love into brokenness. It shows us that true love is not afraid of darkness, danger, or wounds. It seeks until it finds, it carries until it restores, and it rejoices until the lost is home. This story is not only about a sheep, it is about the human soul, about the God who enters the wilderness of our lives to find us, about the relentless pursuit that refuses to leave us in the thorns. It is about leadership that risks, love that sacrifices, and joy that multiplies not when the safe remain safe, but when the lost are found. The story of the shepherd leaving the 99 to search for the one is not just a tale of loss and recovery. It is a window into the deepest truths about value, belonging, and love. To understand its full meaning, we must look closely at the symbolism of both groups, the 99 who stayed and the one who wandered. Each represents a dimension of human life, of spiritual condition, of how we understand ourselves in relation to God and to one another. The 99 seem, at first glance, to be the ideal. They are safe, gathered, accounted for. They follow the shepherd's voice. They graze together. They stay within the fold. They embody security, order, the comfort of belonging to the majority. To be among the 99 is to enjoy stability. Yet beneath that security lies a subtle danger: complacency. The 99 do not realize what it costs the shepherd to keep them together. They do not feel the urgency of pursuit because they have never been pursued. Their safety is a gift they often mistake for their own doing. In this sense, the 99 symbolize those who live within the boundaries of faith, society, or morality, yet forget the fragility of their position. The one, on the other hand, appears foolish, reckless, even unworthy of the shepherd's risk. It wandered off, chasing shadows or grass beyond the pasture. It ignored the boundaries set for its good. Yet in its wandering lies a truth about human nature. The soul longs for something beyond. The one represents the restless, the seeker, the broken, the doubter. It is the person who does not fit neatly into the crowd, who hungers for more, who wrestles with wounds or temptations that pull them away. To the world, the one is expendable. To the shepherd, the one is irreplaceable. Why does Jesus frame the parable this way? Because the one reveals the depth of love in a way the 99 cannot. The safety of the 99 shows the shepherd's care, but the pursuit of the one shows his heart. It is in the search, the risk, the embrace that love is most visible. A shepherd who guards 99 is faithful. A shepherd who risks for one is extraordinary. This parable does not diminish the 99, but it magnifies the one to remind us that every soul carries infinite worth. There is a philosophical tension here. In human reasoning, we often measure value by numbers. Utilitarian ethics tells us the greatest good is for the greatest number. A king protects the majority, a general sacrifices the few to save the many, a business weighs profit over loss. But the parable flips this logic upside down. It reveals a love that does not think in probabilities but in absolutes. The one matters as much as the many. Each soul is infinite, and infinity cannot be reduced by 99 plus 1 is not 100. It is 1 multiplied 100 times. The 99 also reveal something about community. They were never abandoned forever. They were secure within the fold. Their safety reminds us that God does not neglect the faithful while seeking the lost. Yet their presence without the one was incomplete. A family may have many children, but the absence of one leaves the table empty. A community may flourish, but the loss of one member wounds its wholeness. True community is not measured by the strength of the majority, but by the presence of all. Wholeness is only wholeness when no one is missing. The one sheep also teaches us about vulnerability. It had no strength to return on its own. Trapped in thorns, exhausted by fear, it could not walk back to the fold. The shepherd carried it because it could not carry itself. This is the condition of the human soul when lost. We cannot save ourselves. Our pride resists this truth, but the parable forces us to see it. Salvation is not the sheep limping home in shame. It is the shepherd lifting it in grace. The lost are not scolded, they are carried. The journey of the one also speaks to the psychology of being overlooked. In a world of billions, it is easy to feel like a number in a crowd, invisible and replaceable. But this parable shatters that lie. It declares, you are noticed, you are pursued, you are loved as though you were the only one. The shepherd's pursuit of the one is the cure to the wound of invisibility. It tells the heart, you matter beyond measure. Think of inspiring figures who embodied this truth. Mother Teresa did not build her legacy by caring for crowds. She bent down to lift one dying person at a time from the streets of Calcutta. Each act was for the one, yet together they shook the world. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, standing against the tide of Nazi Germany, did not measure risk by numbers. He acted for truth, for the one, for those silenced and oppressed. Martin Luther King Jr. marched not merely for crowds, but for each individual dignity. They all understood that love's power is revealed not in the majority, but in the way it values the one. The 99 and the one also symbolize two paths of the human heart. At times, we are the 99, safe, secure, perhaps even self-satisfied. At other times, we are the one, lost, wandering, needing to be carried. The parable reminds us that whichever we are, the shepherd sees us. If we are safe, his care sustains us. If we are lost, his pursuit redeems us. The distinction is not permanent, for all are capable of drifting, and all are capable of being restored. Theologically, the 99 symbolize the righteous, who believe they need no repentance, while the one represents the sinner whose return brings heaven's joy. But there is a deeper layer. Even the 99 once were ones. Every soul has been lost at some point, and every soul has been carried home. To forget this is to slip into pride, to look down on the wandering. To remember it is to cultivate compassion, to see in every lost one the reflection of our own story. The parable also challenges leaders, pastors, and communities. It is easy to care for the many who gather faithfully, to feed the flock that stays. But the measure of true shepherding is in the pursuit of the absent. Leadership that does not notice who is missing has lost its heart. Communities that celebrate numbers but ignore the one are not whole. The shepherd models a leadership that risks comfort for compassion, that values presence over statistics. Psychologically, the parable heals the fear of rejection. The sheep did not return because it was strong. It was found because it was pursued. Many fear that wandering too far disqualifies them from love, that their mistakes exile them forever. But the shepherd shows the opposite. Wandering does not disqualify. It activates pursuit. The more lost the sheep, the greater the search. The darker the night, the brighter the lamp. The more hopeless the cry, the swifter the embrace. The 99 also serve as a mirror for society. Crowds are often content to ignore the missing. Communities adapt to absence, smoothing over the gap. But the shepherd's absence from the 99 signals a truth. Until the lost are restored, the community cannot rest. Wholeness is not measured by majority, but by inclusion. The flock is not complete until every member is present. At the end of the story, the symbolism converges. The shepherd returns with the one on his shoulders, and the 99 witness his joy. They learn in that moment that their safety was never the full measure of love. It was his pursuit, his risk, his embrace of the one that revealed his heart most clearly. The flock is whole again, not because they never strayed, but because love never gave up. This symbolism stretches into philosophy, psychology, leadership, theology, and daily life. The 99 remind us of safety, belonging, and complacency. The one reminds us of vulnerability, pursuit, and infinite worth. Together, they tell us that love does not choose between majority and minority. It values each as if it were all. The shepherd's heart is revealed not in the numbers he preserves, but in the one he refuses to lose. The heart of the parable is not only that the shepherd went searching, but that he did so at great risk and at great cost. This is the layer often overlooked, because it is easier to retell the story in simple terms. A sheep was lost, the shepherd found it, the end. But the richness of this parable lies in what Jesus left unsaid, what the audience was expected to imagine, what they knew about shepherding in their time. To leave 99 was no safe decision. To enter the wilderness at night was no casual stroll. Every step the shepherd took was an act of courage, a declaration that love is worth more than safety. Picture the scene from the perspective of those who might have been listening to Jesus tell this parable. They knew the dangers of shepherding. Wolves were not myths. They were nightly threats. Thieves often preyed on flocks near the trade routes, waiting for moments of vulnerability. To leave 99 in the open fields while searching for one could mean returning to find many gone. That possibility was real. It would have sounded reckless to many. Yet Jesus used this image deliberately to shock the mind and awaken the heart. The risk the shepherd took challenges the way humans think about value. In economics, we protect the greater asset. In military strategy, we sacrifice the few to preserve the many. In politics, we favor the majority over the minority. But here, the shepherd flips the calculation. He accepts risk to protect the one. Because love does not calculate losses and gains. Love measures only worth, and every soul is worth infinite pursuit. we must look closer at the courage it took. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. The shepherd knew what the wilderness held. He had likely faced predators before. He knew the way darkness magnifies every sound, every shadow. Yet his love for the missing sheep outweighed his fear. Each step into the night was a defiance of danger. His courage was not born of pride, but of devotion. This courage is the kind that history remembers, not the bravery of those who fought for glory, but the bravery of those who risked everything for love. There is also the cost of the journey itself. It cost him time, as the 99 waited unattended. It cost him energy, as his body was tested by the climb, the thorns, the cold air of the night. It cost him comfort, as he bore the weight of the sheep on his shoulders, walking the long road back. Yet the shepherd did not consider these costs as losses. They were the price of love, and to him, love was worth it. This is the paradox of love. What looks like loss to the world feels like joy to the one who loves. This reveals the distinction between utilitarian reasoning and what some thinkers call intrinsic worth. Utilitarianism says, protect the many, accept the loss of the few. But intrinsic worth says, each being holds a value that cannot be reduced. Immanuel Kant wrote that humans should be treated never merely as a means, but always as an end in themselves. This echoes the shepherd's heart. The sheep was not a means to profit, not a tool for wool or meat. It was an end in itself, valued for what it was. The shepherd risked all because the sheep was more than a number. It was a life. The courage of the shepherd answers a deep fear in the human heart, the fear of abandonment. Many people live with the suspicion that if they wander too far, if they fail too often, if they cost too much, they will be left behind. But the parable destroys that fear. It shows that true love does not abandon, even when logic says it should. The shepherd's courage says to every wandering soul, you are not too costly to pursue, you are not too heavy to carry, you are not too far gone to be found. Think also of the symbolism of carrying the sheep back on his shoulders. This was no small task. Sheep are not light. An adult sheep can weigh anywhere from 70 to 100 pounds. To lift one onto his shoulders and walk the uneven terrain back to the fold required immense strength. Yet this burden was borne with joy. In the shepherd's act, we see the essence of redemptive love, taking the weight of another, making their weakness your own, carrying them until they are safe. This is courage transformed into compassion, risk transformed into restoration. The cost of love is echoed throughout history. Consider the courage of Martin Luther King Jr., who risked his safety and ultimately his life to pursue justice for those considered the one in society, the marginalized, the oppressed. Think of Mother Teresa, who risked health and comfort to serve the dying in Calcutta, lifting one person after another out of despair. Think of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who risked everything to stand against tyranny because he believed one soul was worth protecting from the lies of power. These lives echo the shepherd's courage, risking for the one, even when the 99 called for safety. The parable also teaches us about the cost of leadership. True leadership does not remain in the fold where it is safe. It goes out, it risks, it bears the weight of the vulnerable. Leadership is not measured by how many remain content in the flock, but by how far one is willing to go to find those who are missing. This cost cannot be measured in profit or applause. It is measured in scars and sleepless nights, in burdens carried with love. There is also a deeper cost hidden in the shepherd's journey, the cost of loneliness. When he left the 99, he was alone. The wilderness does not echo with voices of support. It echoes with silence, with questions, with fears that gnaw at the mind. The shepherd's only company was his determination and his love. This loneliness is something many face when they choose to pursue the one. Leaders, parents, friends who refuse to give up on someone. The path of pursuit is often solitary, but it is in solitude that the strength of love is revealed. The risk, the courage, and the cost of the shepherd culminate in the joy of return. Joy that outweighs the wounds, the fatigue, the danger. Joy that declares the cost was worth it. Joy that says love is not measured by ease, but by endurance. In the end, the shepherd did not regret the risk, the courage, the cost. He celebrated, because love fulfilled itself in the restoration of the one. This is why Jesus framed the parable in this way. He wanted his listeners to feel the tension of risk, to question the logic of leaving the 99, to see the scandal of such courage. And in that tension, he wanted them to glimpse the heart of God, a love that risks, that endures, that carries, that rejoices. The parable is not a safe story. It is a dangerous one. It dares to declare that every soul is worth the wilderness, worth the risk, worth the cost. It challenges us to ask, are we willing to leave safety for love? Are we willing to risk comfort to pursue the one? Are we willing to bear the cost of carrying another until they are restored? When the shepherd finally carried the sheep back, the night was still thick around him, but within his heart there was light. The journey back was not silent. His breathing was heavy, his steps labored, yet his spirit was alive with joy. The sheep, once trembling, now rested on his shoulders. Its cries had ceased. It was calm, not because the wilderness had changed, but because it had been found. This is the first mystery of the return. Peace does not require a change of environment. Peace comes from the presence of love. The 99 waited in the fold. They stirred as he approached, perhaps confused at his absence, perhaps restless at the delay. The shepherd re-entered not with words of apology, but with a presence that carried triumph. He laid the sheep gently among them, restoring the flock to wholeness. What had been fractured was now mended. In that moment, the fold was not simply safe, it was complete. This return reveals a profound truth about restoration. It is not enough to be found. One must also be reintegrated. The sheep was not kept apart as an example, not shamed for wandering, not isolated as a warning to others. It was returned to the flock as if it had never left. This is the essence of grace, restoration that erases the wound of separation. In human terms, it is forgiveness that does not keep records, love that does not remind the lost of their failure, belonging that is renewed, without condition. The shepherd's joy was not private. He rejoiced openly. In Luke's telling of the parable, Jesus says the shepherd calls his friends and neighbors, saying, "Rejoice with me, I have found my sheep which was lost." Imagine the scene. A man, weary from his night's journey, bloodied by thorns, sweat still fresh on his brow, yet smiling with the radiance of triumph. He does not celebrate his courage or his endurance. He celebrates only that the lost has been found. This is the second mystery of the return. Joy multiplies when it is shared. This joy is not ordinary happiness. It is the joy of something restored that could have been lost forever. Psychologists call this contrast theory. The intensity of emotion is heightened when measured against what might have been. The shepherd's joy was magnified because he knew the cost of what could have been. A sheep devoured, a life extinguished, a flock forever incomplete. Instead, he held restoration in his arms. That contrast birthed a joy deeper than comfort ever could. This is why Jesus concludes the parable by saying, "There will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous who do not need to repent." The joy of heaven is not static, it is dynamic, erupting when what was broken is made whole, when what was lost is restored. The return of the one creates a celebration that even the faithfulness of the 99 cannot equal. This is not to diminish the 99, but to magnify the miracle of redemption. Safety is good, restoration is glorious. Consider how celebrations mark our lives. We celebrate births because life has entered where there was none. We celebrate weddings because two lives are joined into one. We celebrate healings because health has triumphed over sickness. In each, joy is not born from routine, but from transformation. The return of the lost sheep is such a celebration, not the maintenance of what is safe, but the transformation of what was gone into what is home again. The transformation is not only in the sheep, but in the flock. The 99, who may have grumbled at the shepherd's departure, now witness his joy and learn his heart. They see that his love is not divided by numbers. They realize that if they had been the one, he would have done the same. This revelation changes the meaning of belonging. To be in the flock is not merely to be part of a group. It is to be individually valued, uniquely pursued, infinitely loved. The presence of the one teaches the 99 what their own presence truly means. There is also transformation in the sheep itself. Having been carried on the shepherd's shoulders, it now knows the depth of his devotion. It has felt his strength, his heartbeat, his breath. It knows that its life was worth the risk of the wilderness. This changes how it understands the flock. It is no longer merely one among many. It is one who has been pursued and restored. Its place in the flock is no longer routine, it is grace. This transformation mirrors the psychology of recovery in human life. A person who has been lost, whether through addiction, failure, despair, or doubt, and who has been restored, does not see life the same way again. They know what it is to be pursued, to be carried, to be forgiven. Their gratitude runs deeper. Their belonging is richer. Their perspective shifts from entitlement to awe. The parable captures this truth. The found one becomes a living testimony of the shepherd's love. Philosophically, the celebration of the one teaches us about the nature of value. In mathematics, one seems small. In love, one is infinite. The return of one life shifts the entire meaning of the flock. The 99 may remain the same, but the flock is transformed because absence has become presence. This is a principle that stretches into every part of human life. A missing voice in a choir changes the harmony. A missing player in a team changes the game. A missing member in a family changes the home. Restoration, then, is not addition. It is transformation of the whole. Historically, communities that have embodied this truth have changed the world. Think of movements for justice that celebrated the restoration of even one life to dignity. The abolitionists who freed one slave and rejoiced as if freedom had triumphed everywhere. The civil rights workers who restored one person to voting rights and saw in that victory the beginning of a revolution. The doctors who healed one patient and found in that healing the affirmation of all their work. Each act of restoration carried a joy that rippled far beyond the individual. The return also teaches us about the nature of God's kingdom. It is not a kingdom measured by numbers but by stories. Each story of restoration is a cause for heavenly celebration. Angels rejoice not at statistics but at redemption. Heaven does not cheer for crowds, it erupts for the one. This reveals a radical truth. The kingdom of God is not built on masses but on moments. Moments when one soul is found, one heart is healed, one life is restored. The parable invites us to embody this celebration. Too often, human communities struggle to welcome back the lost. We hold grudges. We remind people of their failures. We keep them at the margins. But the shepherd models a different way. He does not hesitate to restore the sheep fully. He does not use its wandering as a warning to others. He celebrates. He calls neighbors to rejoice. His joy is complete, not conditional. To live by this parable is to become communities of restoration, places where the return of the one is met not with suspicion but with celebration. The transformation of the shepherd is also worth noting. He begins the story as a guardian of 99, but he ends it as the redeemer of one. His identity as a shepherd is magnified by his pursuit. He is not merely one who maintains, he is one who restores. His joy is greater because his love has been tested and proven. In carrying the sheep, he becomes more than a keeper. He becomes a savior. This transformation has echoes in human life. Parents become more deeply parents, not when all their children are safe, but when they rescue one from danger. Friends become truer friends, not when days are easy, but when one lifts the other from despair. Leaders become real leaders, not when the group prospers, but when they pursue the one who falters. The cost of pursuit deepens identity. The celebration of restoration redefines who we are. The return, then, is not the end of the parable. It is the beginning of a new story. A story where the flock knows it is loved individually. A story where the lost knows it is restored completely. A story where the shepherd knows his joy is complete. A story where heaven erupts in celebration because one has come home. This is the final mystery of the return. Love is never content with almost. It is whole only when the one is restored. And when it is, joy explodes, not quietly but openly, not privately but communally, not as duty but as delight. The shepherd risked, the shepherd endured, the shepherd carried, and the shepherd rejoiced. This is the rhythm of love, the story of redemption, the transformation of all who are found. The story of the shepherd who leaves 99 sheep to search for one is not only about God's pursuit of humanity. It is also a mirror held up to the human heart, forcing us to see ourselves in both the 99 and the one. At different times in life, each of us inhabits both roles, sometimes safe in the fold, sometimes wandering in the wilderness. The genius of this parable is that it speaks to both conditions with equal force, exposing the hidden patterns of our souls and calling us to deeper awareness. Let us begin with the 99. To be among them is to live in the comfort of routine. Life feels predictable, needs are met, dangers are distant. The shepherd is present, guiding, protecting. This condition resembles the human tendency to settle into patterns, work, family, community, faith, that provide stability. We crave this order because chaos threatens us. Yet the danger of this state is not physical but spiritual. Safety can harden into complacency. Security can blind us to vulnerability. The 99 did not realize they too could be lost, that their place in the fold was not proof of superiority, but a gift of grace. In the human heart, this condition surfaces as pride. We begin to measure our worth by our proximity to the flock, by how well we conform, by how consistently we remain. This pride whispers that we are different from the one, that wandering belongs to others. Yet beneath the pride lies denial, because every human being carries the capacity to drift. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard described this as despair, the hidden sickness of the soul that convinces itself it is fine while it is quietly losing its way. The 99 remind us that belonging without reflection can turn into blindness. Now look at the one. To be the one is to experience the loneliness of separation. The sheep did not intend to create a parable. It simply wandered. This is how wandering often begins. Small steps, unnoticed choices, subtle distractions. We rarely declare outright rebellion. More often we drift, drawn by curiosity, tempted by illusions of greener grass, seduced by promises beyond the fold. By the time we realize we are lost, the distance has grown too wide. We cry, but our voice seems too small. We struggle, but our strength fails. We look back, and the flock is nowhere in sight. This is the human condition of lostness. The moment we realize our independence has become isolation. Psychologically, this experience mirrors the patterns of depression, anxiety, or existential disconnection. People wander into careers that leave them empty, relationships that wound them, habits that enslave them. At first, the path feels like freedom. Over time, it becomes a trap. The one sheep represents every soul who wakes up and realizes, I am not where I was meant to be. The parable does not romanticize this wandering. It names it for what it is, danger. The sheep was not thriving alone. It was trembling, tangled, vulnerable. So too, the human soul cannot flourish in isolation. Yet here lies the brilliance of the story. Both the 99 and the one need the shepherd equally. The 99 need him to guard against complacency, to remind them their safety is a gift, not an achievement. The one needs him for rescue because it cannot return alone. The parable teaches us that no one is beyond need. Whether surrounded by community or stranded in wilderness, the human soul requires the presence of the shepherd. This is where the parable becomes a mirror for self-knowledge. Cartesian philosophy begins with doubt. I think, therefore I am. But the parable invites a deeper reflection. I am pursued, therefore I am loved. The human self is not defined solely by its ability to think or to act, but by the reality that it is noticed and sought. To know oneself fully is to know that one is never invisible. This realization heals the core wound of modern life, the fear of insignificance. We live in a world where people are reduced to numbers, followers, views, votes, statistics. The 99 can look like success, but in the reduction to numbers, individuals vanish. The one, however, reveals the truth. Every person carries infinite value. The shepherd does not ask whether the lost sheep is useful. He does not weigh its worth against the flock. He pursues because value is intrinsic. The parable exposes the emptiness of utilitarian thinking, reminding us that the human soul is not a tool but a treasure. The mirror of the parable also confronts us with our responsibilities. If we are in the fold, are we content to remain safe while others wander? Or do we share in the shepherd's heart to pursue? Many communities, religious, social, political, boast of their numbers, their strength, their stability, while ignoring the ones who have slipped away. The parable indicts such attitudes. It reminds us that true faithfulness is not measured by the 99 who stay, but by the pursuit of the one who is missing. To reflect the shepherd's heart is to ask, constantly, who is absent, who is unseen, who is in danger. This is not only a religious lesson but a human one. In families, a parent may focus on the children who thrive while overlooking the one who struggles. In classrooms, teachers may reward the attentive while neglecting the quiet child who fades into the background. In workplaces, leaders may promote the successful while ignoring the one who falters. The parable mirrors these realities, demanding that we see the one, that we leave the comfort of the majority to pursue the vulnerable. The transformation of the one also mirrors the path of repentance. Repentance is not merely guilt, it is recognition of being found. The sheep did not find its way back. It was carried. This truth dismantles the illusion of self-sufficiency. Human beings often pride themselves on independence, but the parable insists that salvation, healing, restoration, these come not from our strength, but from being carried. This is why repentance is so often accompanied by gratitude, the recognition that we have been saved by a love greater than ourselves. The mirror also reflects the shepherd's image onto us. If we are followers of this shepherd, then his pattern becomes our calling. We too are called to risk for the one, to step into wilderness, to bear burdens, to rejoice in restoration. The parable is not a spectator story, it is a blueprint for life. To be human is to be both sheep and shepherd, both pursued and pursuer, both restored and restorer. Philosophically, this raises profound questions about identity. Who am I? Am I defined by my place among the 99, by my role in the flock? Or am I defined by the fact that I am seen individually, pursued personally, loved infinitely? The parable suggests the latter. My identity is not swallowed by the crowd. It is revealed in the shepherd's pursuit. This truth liberates the soul from the tyranny of comparison. I do not need to measure myself against the 99. I need only to rest in the fact that I am worth pursuit. Psychologically, this mirror heals shame. Shame whispers, "You wandered too far. You are not worth returning." But the shepherd's act contradicts this voice. The sheep was not scolded, not punished, not shamed. It was lifted, carried, restored. The parable teaches us that love does not keep records of wrongs. Love rejoices not in judgment, but in restoration. For every soul weighed down by shame, this truth is liberating. Spiritually, the mirror confronts us with the nature of God's love. It is not abstract, not general, not diluted across the masses. It is specific, personal, relentless. The shepherd does not love humanity in bulk. He loves each soul as though it were the only one. This is the staggering intimacy of divine love. It pursues the one, always. Finally, the parable as a mirror calls us to live differently, to see the world not as numbers but as souls, to notice absence, to pursue with courage, to restore with grace, to rejoice with extravagance. The story does not end with the return of the one. It continues in the lives of all who see themselves in its mirror. For once we know we are pursued, we cannot remain indifferent. We are called to pursue others with the same love. In this way, the parable becomes not only a story of sheep and shepherds, but a guide for humanity. It reveals the restless heart of the one, the complacent heart of the 99, the pursuing heart of the shepherd, and the transforming power of love. To read it is to see ourselves. To live it is to become more than we were. The parable of the lost sheep is not simply an ancient story whispered across centuries. It is a mirror of who we are and a window into who God is. It tells us that no matter how far we have wandered, we are never beyond pursuit. No matter how hidden our pain, it is never beyond notice. No matter how heavy our mistakes, they are never beyond the strength of a love that carries. Think about it. Out of 99, the shepherd left everything behind to search for the one. That means you are not a number. You are not background noise in a crowd. You are the one who matters, the one worth searching for, the one worth carrying, the one worth celebrating when restored. That is the power of this parable. It tears down the lie that you are insignificant and plants the truth that you are invaluable. And here's the challenge it leaves us with. If this is how the shepherd loves us, then how should we live? Do we ignore the ones who wander, content with the safety of the 99? Or do we dare to step into the wilderness for the sake of love? This story calls us not only to receive grace, but to reflect it, not only to be carried, but to carry others, not only to be restored, but to rejoice when anyone, no matter who, returns home. So I leave you with this question. In your life right now, who is the one? Who is missing from your fold? Who needs you to notice, to pursue, to carry, to restore? Because the heart of the parable is not just that God pursues us, it is that we are called to live in the same way. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Which part of this story speaks to you most today? Do you see yourself as the one who wandered, or as part of the 99 learning to understand the shepherd's heart? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your words might be the very sign someone else needs to know they are not alone. Because when we speak, when we share, when we rejoice together, we join in the same celebration that shakes heaven whenever one lost soul is found.